Michael Michael. Yes, it is 2 last names or 2 first names. The only thing I ask is don't call me by my last name. I don't like it. I will explain real briefly how it came to be Michael Michael. Firstly, it comes from Ben, son of. In biblical days, they didn't have last names. It was John, son of George, and Lou, son of Peter, etc., before the last names came into being, as far as historical information. And many Jews added the son of, sometimes daughter of, but, so Ben would be son of. So in my case, I'm Michael, son of Michael. My dad's and granddad and great-granddads were Michael. My great-granddad decreed that the next male born will have to be a Michael Michael. They were all girls all the time, and sure enough, I was blessed with that. In my family, they dropped the son of. In some other families, when the diaspora occurred and the Jews fled and went to different places, in the Scandinavian countries, they insisted to move the son of from the middle and add it on the end. So then you have Jorgensen, Davidson, son, you know, the son of went to the end of the name. So, so much for the name. So I'm Michael Michael. How it is that I know Hebrew so well is that I was born into it. My first language, and really my only language, my entire family in Israel, we all speak Hebrew. So Hebrew is my mother language, as they say, and I know it pretty well. English, I know too good. All right. What I use to teach is my own book, since my teaching, the results of my teaching in early days when the Lord put it on my heart to teach Hebrew to Christians. At that time, I came to America as an exchange student, and I discovered money, girls, and cars, and I needed all 3. So I wanted to work, and the synagogue gave me a job to teach their children of the synagogue, their bar mitzvah lessons, and to teach Hebrew in general. Every once in a while, an adult would come to class from curiosity. They wanted to learn. Some stayed in class. They felt funny being the only adult in a room full of children, so it didn't last long. And what I used for teaching Hebrew was either the material that the synagogue gave me, which was hundreds of years old, if not thousands, and I didn't care for it. It didn't work real well. And when the Lord put it on my heart to teach Hebrew to Christians, and specifically God said, don't bother teaching Hebrew to those Jews. They have their own, they have their own ability from their rabbis and from their cantors. They don't really need you, but I need for you to teach Hebrew to Christians. I took that to heart, and I bought books in Israel from school bookstores. I bought first, second, and third grade school books and attempted to use those to teach Hebrew to adults. Children was not a problem because the books were designed for the children's brains, but they were not designed for adults' brains, and my results weren't good. They were okay. People did learn to read Hebrew through me and my courses, but I was so frustrated. After 10 years, my wife said, Michael, you're too frustrated. It's showing in your teaching ability. It's not a good thing. You need to create your own book. And I said, create your own book? I'm not an author. I don't know. I'm English not too good. But she insisted. And I'm so very, very glad. And of course, God kept putting it on my heart. So we worked on a book together, my wife and I, geared for the adult brain to learn Hebrew. And I have to tell you, obviously it's all God. He put the ideas on my mind for this book. And my idea was this: if I could teach adults to read Hebrew, they can continue their learning of Hebrew because any program you go to on the internet, and there are myriads of programs, and I can tell you bunches right off the top of my head. myjewishlearning.com, myhebrewlearning.com, hebrewforeveryone.com. All of those, you need to learn a little bit about how, you need to know how to read a little bit to follow the instructions that both the teacher and those materials give you so that you can go on and teach yourself the rest of the way. Well, for me, the most important thing was if I could teach an adult to read Hebrew, I know this adult, with the knowledge of their ability to learn to read, can teach yourself the rest of the way. And I can tell you that my first few classes were pastors. I was hooked up with an organization that is a Christian school, and they were teaching a lot of pastors. I'm finding in the last 10, 15 years that pastors used to vie to learn another language, and it was always Greek. Well, Greek's out the window. I know in that school, my class had 3 to 5 students. The Greek class across the way had 30, 40 students. That was way back then. Today, when I teach, pastors come to my class, I have 25 to 35 pastors in my Hebrew class, and every once in a while I glance over to the Greek class across the way,
They got
3 or 4 people. So it has completely turned around. So the materials that I mostly use for my teaching is, of course, the Hebrew Bible. And secondly, it's the larger-than-life Siddur, which is in gigantic letters. And the good thing is that here in this book, we're learning blessings and prayers at the same time as we're learning how to read Hebrew. So it's like get a double dose of it. And plus, my friend Jeremiah Greenberg, who put this book together, we're very good friends, have been for years. I did get permission from him to use some excerpts out of here into the book, that hopefully everybody who's enrolled in class has a book in front of them. If not, then we can talk about that. So that's the second portion that I use a lot of information out of. And you know, you can purchase these, not for me, but these are available everywhere. They're very good. And of course, I use the book. This is the book that I finally worked on for years and years and years. And I have to tell you, I'm very, very proud of what the Lord did by guiding me the right way in this book. I can tell you that now I have been teaching with this book. I've been teaching 30 plus years, but for the last 15 years out of this book. It was 15 years ago that we've finished the book and actually begun to use it quite extensively. Several colleges use this book now for their either distance learning or just whoever at the universities or the colleges are interested in Hebrew. They look for a Hebrew for adults. This is the book that some colleges use as well as many privates. At the moment, I only have 3 private students. I don't take more than 5 because there are only 5 days of the week that I want to work at teaching Hebrew. So in this book, we'll go through the book in a little bit. By error, I misplaced the syllabuses. But next week when I come, everyone will get a syllabus, and we'll take 10 minutes to catch up on what we missed today. There was a question?
Yeah, there's 3 of us right there, and that man over there don't seem to have a book.
Oh, we missed it.
Okay, let's do this. How about if we give you 3 of these? Are you going to do that?
They've already,
Oh, you have enrollment forms?
Yeah,
Yes?
But you didn't
Everybody
get a
who
book.
wants a book has an enrollment form in already?
she doesn't have hers in yet. You have more books? Yeah, you didn't get a book, Roberta?
no, I needed it.
I'll take care of it, you keep teaching.
Okay.
Everything I haven't turned in my application because I had a question on it.
All right, so I'll keep going then. Everybody got their Haman's ear? Boo! All right, are they? Good. All righty. Why do Christians need to learn Hebrew? Okay, it's a rhetorical question. I'm going to give you the answer. All right, why? I mean, what what for? I can tell you that I wasn't sure why Christians would need to learn to read Hebrew. And I think that to read Hebrew is step number one for Christian people who are outside of the Hebrew world. To get into Hebrew, reading it is the first and number one and foremost. That will help you to pick up the rest of the Hebrew language. Why? And that is because, this is an opinion, this is my professorial opinion, and that is that translation from Hebrew to English is awful. There are so many words in Hebrew that there are no such words to be used in English. And there are so many little nuances in the Bible. In most examples of Bibles, not just one, all of them. I know that the one that has the least errors is the New King James. This is the one that I'm finding that has the least errors. Those are wonderful. I don't want you to misunderstand me. They're all wonderful. Take any one of them, learn it. You'll have a great life if you know it. Doesn't matter which Bible. But as far as translation from the Hebrew to the English, the New King James gives me the best satisfaction. However, even there exist many incorrect examples. I will give you one that I thought, this is the one that caught my eye when I began to study and look for words that are so off the wall, not correct, that I love to use those. They do a good impact. Here is one. When Moses met with the Lord, the burning bush, Moses finally said to the Lord, okay, I'll do everything you tell me. I will be obedient. But, you know those Jews down there, those Hebrews down at the bottom of the mountain, they're waiting on me. The first thing they're going to ask me when I return down there to give them the instructions you've given me here, first thing they're going to say to me, the tenaciousness that they are, is, did you see it with your own eyes? And God, I want to be able to tell them, yes, I saw it with my own eyes. God says, fine, not a problem. That staff you're holding, throw it down. I'm going to show you a little miracle. You're asking me to show you a miracle so you can tell the Hebrews, yes, you saw it with your own eyes. Well, here it is. Throw down your staff. We all know the story. This is not a test. Moses throws down his staff. What does the English Bible, any Bible, there are only two answers between all the Bibles that are written. One of them is a snake, and the other one is a serpent. All right? Now, I don't know what a serpent is. I don't think anyone in here knows what a serpent is, because a serpent is one of those words that it could be a lizard, it could be a snake, it could be a monitor lizard, it could be a little lizard, it could be a seven-headed monster. I don't know what a serpent is, and I'm not scared from the word serpent. It doesn't put any fear in me, and we all know God loves to show fear. In fact, we read in the text, in the scriptures, that the beginning of wisdom is fear. So God likes to show fear. And that's what's in between the lines in the Hebrew Bibles. God likes to show fear. Because I'm surmising that. Why? Because when God made a snake appear, when God made Moses' staff become a snake, and the Hebrew Bible does say snake, and I'll finish my thought in a minute, you'll see what I mean. Why? Why not a little bunny rabbit? Why not a flock of birds or butterflies? Why a snake? Here's why. God likes to show fear. Moses was barefooted. I promise you, Moses jumped back when that staff turned into a snake. I promise you. I wasn't there, but I promise you. All right. The snake is the most feared animal in the wilderness in those days. There was no cutting an axe and sucking the blood out or calling 911. There was none of that. You got bit by a snake, you're done. Okay, so fear, number one, and the miracle is that God created a snake out of a stick. Okay, now here comes my point. A little further down the line, Moses and Aaron are now before the Pharaoh. And they're not in the wilderness. They're on the Nile. The Pharaoh says to Moses, oh, your God is a big deal. You can show miracles and all. Can you show us something? Moses then looks at Aaron and said, Aaron, you're holding my staff. Throw it down. Aaron throws down the staff. What does the English Bible again say the staff turned into? There are only two kind of answers here. Some Bibles say snake, which is absolutely erroneous. And other Bibles say serpent, which, again, I don't know what a serpent is. I don't feel fear from a serpent. But would you feel fear from a 40-foot crocodile next to you? Would you be fearful? Because the Hebrew Bible says that Moses' staff turned into a crocodile. Okay? The Hebrew word for crocodile is tanin. So why did the translators of yesteryear not say crocodile? Why lie? Why say snake or serpent or, you know, why? I don't know why. I don't care why. But there's a different air in understanding the scripture when you hear the right words there. Okay? And it makes a lot of difference. You have a different thought about that event when Moses and Aaron stood before the Pharaoh and his staff turned into a gigantic crocodile. Wow. Did you ever think? Who would have thunk it, right? Did you ever think that it was a crocodile? No, we are born with that snake mentality and a serpent, which we don't know what it means. I'm not afraid of a serpent, but I'm afraid of a crocodile. Why? Because at that area on the Nile, the crocodiles used to snatch people from land and eat them, and cows and various other animals, dogs, cats, whatever. So there is fear. There's instilled fear in there. And again, God likes to show fear. And so that is one of the reasons that I believe it's important for everybody to really know enough of the Hebrew. I'm not saying learn the language and be proficient at it and go and have a conversation with Netanyahu. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying is learn how to read enough to where between that, you're reading, and one of these wonderful things, the Hebrew-English, English-Hebrew dictionary. Now, quick story, and then we'll get to our today's lesson. When I arrived in America and wanted money and found a job at the synagogue, and they came to me about 2 or 3 weeks after I was teaching children at the synagogue, they were elated to have me. Oh, from Israel. We have a family from Israel. And when I met them, they were in the 90s. They weren't teaching kids any Hebrew. So I was elated. First of all, it was fun. Second of all, a couple of bucks was nice. I did not have the correct visa. I was here on a student's visa. And the office of the synagogue called me in one day and said, we can't pay you anymore. The board of directors said that you don't have the correct papers for you to be able to work. We can't pay you, but we'd love to have you teach. Okay, well, long story less boring. Somehow I met an attorney whose specialty was immigration and naturalization. It was a lady attorney at the synagogue. She said, I heard from my daughter who's in your class that the office said they can't pay you, but I can help you change your visa if you want to, from a student's visa to a permanent resident visa, and then you'll get a green card, then you can work. And I said, done. 4 weeks later, I had my new visa, and I could work, and I could earn, and everything was hunky-dory, and it was great. So life went on for me. And I started teaching, and everything was really great, because even adults asked me, if they get together 6 or 8 people, would I come and teach some weekend or nights? And I did that. And so that was like 35 years ago. Okay, now I've been to Israel since then, approximately twice a year for about a month at a time. Sometimes I skip a year, but go for 2 or 3 months. Last time I was in Israel, I visited Israel. I had a few students with me. We were there for 4 months. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. What I will tell you is that sometimes people have the fear of the unknown. You've heard people say, oh, no, I could never do that. Well, I know that although I don't like this personality very much, Henry Ford, he was a an anti-Semitic big way, so I don't have any love for him, but he was an astute and very smart person, and he had a sign in his office that read, if you think you can, you're right, and if you think you cannot, you're right. And that's how I relate to people when I say, well, what do you do? Well, I teach Hebrew. Oh, I could never learn Hebrew. It's crazy, it's backwards, it's upside down, it's this. I say, well, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. But I will tell you that because Hebrew is a phonetic language, it's very simple to learn. Once you know the two basics, you learn the alphabet, 22 characters. That's it. You learn the 22 characters, know them by heart, and then know the few variations that appear within the letters, the consonants, the few variations, whether they have a dot in them or not, makes the pronunciation different, whether they have a little line underneath them or over them or next to them. All these little jots and tittles around the Hebrew letters tell you, they're kind of like vowels. They're not vowels, but they act like vowels. Some Hebrew letters sometimes are vowels, depending on the jots and tittles near them, in them, over them, under them, or etc. That's basically what you learn, and once you know those variations, you can sound out the word. Last little story, and then we'll get on this class. Did I say that 5 times already?
Yeah.
Maybe this will be the last. I'm not promising anything. While I was teaching Hebrew, I was young. I looked out to the courtyard at the Hebrew class that I had at the synagogue. This was in Miami Beach actually. And I see a guy dressed in all black, and he's carrying what looked like 2 Bibles, and he had the collar, and I said, my first Christian. And I watched, and I saw that he sat down, and he waited, and then the bell rang, and all my kids ran out of the room, and I'm at the board cleaning, and all of a sudden this person appears there at the door, and he says, Michael, the rabbi said it would be okay to talk with you. I said, oh, for sure, come on in. The only thing I knew is that they call this kind of person with the collar, they call him father. I remember that from a movie or from a story. I don't know where I got it from, but I said, oh, yes, Father, sure, I'll be more than glad to help you. He goes, well, let me show you. I have 2 Bibles here. And at a certain verse, on one of the Bibles, it uses the word favor, and in the other Bible, it uses the word grace. Now, I know they're close, but he says, I'm a student of language, and I want to know exactly what the original language says in that verse. Is it grace or is it favor? And I said, Father, why does it matter? They're close enough, aren't they? If the big professors, the translators, if they use those words, they got to be okay. He goes, yeah, they can be used. He says, but let me cite to you this question. If you could choose only one, either favor or grace from the Lord, which would you choose? Now, look, I was just a tenacious little Jew boy from near Jerusalem in Israel. I didn't know too much about the Christian world. I knew there was them Christians and us Jews. I never heard anything bad about Christians, only good things. I'd only been to a church one time, and one day when I tell you my testimony, you'll understand, and I will bring out that point. And I said to him, well, aren't they close enough? He said, which one would you choose? Now, I submit to you here right now that this was the first time that I know I wasn't talking, but I know who was. But it was coming out of my mouth. But it wasn't me, because I didn't know the stuff. That's how I know it wasn't me. But it was coming out of my mouth. I said to him, well, forgive me, Father, but I understand that all Christians have God's grace. Even pedophiles in prisons, they still have God's grace. So if you're asking me which would I choose, since I already have God's grace, I would choose God's favor, because not everybody has God's favor. King David had God's favor, but there are others who didn't. So that's what I say. And he says, you know what? We agree. That's exactly right. That's why I want to know. We looked it up, and it was grace. And he says, I knew it. Now I know what to teach my people. And we parted as friends. I still get Christmas cards from this guy. And he did come to my adult lesson about a year later when I actually had adults. And he did pretty good. And he was a priest at a local Catholic outfit over there. So what am I trying to bring out here? I'm trying to bring out that the translators from Hebrew to English in yesteryear didn't know to go to the rabbis. They went to scholars who learned Hebrew and now could teach it. But Hebrew, if you're not born with it, there are words that you're just not going to get. You're just not going to know unless you're born into a Jewish environment, into a Jewish family. Hebrew can be learned, and many do, but there are so many things in Hebrew that it's nefesh, it's soul, it's you either have it or don't. You can't learn it. But you can learn 90%, and that's good, because then you can at least read the Bible. All right, the 22 consonants. Now you can open your books to any questions so far? Any questions so far? All righty, first thing is everybody those who have a book, please open it. Right inside the cover, at the very top, it says this book belongs to. Please put your names in there so that whenever you leave it behind by accident, we'll know who to give it back to. At the very bottom of the inside cover, you see information about me. No excuses. No, my dog ate my homework. No, I forgot it. No, rain destroyed it. None of that. If you need any information, you can email me, you can text me, you can call me. You have my permission. You call me. You can even call me at 4 a.m. It's okay. I won't answer, but you can call me. Okay, but I am notorious for returning calls. So you may not get a call like right there, right now, but you will get a call back if you have a question. So do make use of it. Since I didn't bring my syllabus, or did and can't find it, anyway, next week you'll all get syllabuses. Let's use the table of contents instead of the syllabus. Okay? So section 1. We're going to learn the consonants, the letters, the pronunciations, etc., etc. I don't want to sit here and flip the pages. You'll do that in your curiosity when you get home. You'll look at this book. And I do recommend looking at it. Look at page by page by page. Look at what kind of homeworks there are in here. And by the way, the red letters are going to be, as you flip through the book, anything in red are going to be words that you're going to spell out for me and pronounce for me before this course is over. You will know those words. I'm concentrating on those words. And this book is Bible-based. Everything in here is out of the Bible or something to do with the Bible. That's where I got all the information. All right? Now, let's actually go into, firstly, let me do the prayer that I like to start with. Except on the first day of class, this does not happen. But from now on, the first thing we'll do is we'll do the prayer. I will read the prayer in Hebrew. If you look at, I'm on page 1, by the way. You look at this prayer, it's Psalms 19. Right beneath each word, the transliteration of that word in Hebrew. And then further down, you see the entire blessing in English, right above the flag. Okay? So here goes the Hebrew. יהיו לרצון אומרי פי והגיון להביא לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן, בשם ישוע המשיח, amen. That's so you can all join me if you care to in the English. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable unto thee, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer, thou who establishes peace in the heavens, and thou peace in all Israel, in all mankind, in Yeshua's name, in Jesus' name, amen. Now just below it, there's a little blurb about the flag. That's your own to read at another time, unless you have questions. And by the way, if you all of a sudden formulate a question, I'm very good at staying on task. Raise your hand, we'll cover the question, we'll get over it, then we'll get back on task. I don't like to not ask a question when it appears in your mind, because later you'll forget. So when you have a question, raise your hand, we'll handle it at the time. All right? So as you see, section 1 on page 2, facts and periods of the Hebrew language. Again, this is not something I have to spend with you to read, so read that, it's important. If you turn the page with me to page 3, then you see the progression of the Hebrew letters, the consonants, the language itself, anywhere from caveman to today. This is the progression. They all have different names, different eras, different times of the biblical era as well. On page 4, the very bottom one, the one just above the very bottom one is today's alphabet. And below it, the very last one on page 4 is script. We don't learn script here. The last few lessons will touch base on it. This is something you learn on your own. It's very simple. Once you know the alphabet, then you know the alphabet. If you turn to page 5, Hebrew alphabet language graph. Okay? I can tell you that there are volumes written about every letter of the Hebrew alphabet. There's a historical, huge amount of information about every letter of the Hebrew alphabet. They mean things. They have numeric values. They historically are just full of information. And here is just a little bit of all that information, but I think it's pretty important. So if you look at the top brown section of this yellow page, it shows you the modern name, the modern Hebrew, modern sound. Some letters are silent if they don't have a jot or a tittle in them, under them, over them, next to them. That's how we know how to pronounce. And I'll show you on a board a real simple way using English letters on how to do those. Okay? So again, this is more for you to read and look. So please do, as part of your homework, look at this page, you'll get a great idea. Let's jump to page 6. Page 6, we will use a lot. We will revert to page 6 a lot, especially newcomers to Hebrew. On page 6, if you look at the very top, right beneath where it says Hebrew alphabet print form, if you look at the headings, on the very left column it says name, next one says sound, next one says book form, next one looks blank, but if you look further down, you see 5 letters that, and this is an anomaly, no other language has this, only Hebrew has this. It has 5 letters that look different when they're placed at the end of a word. But they still are the same letter, they mean the same value, same picture, same meaning, same everything. They just look different when they're placed at the end of the word. I've asked many rabbis why that is. So far, I've never had an answer. I don't know why, but when I know, you'll know too. Okay, the next column where it says hand at the very top of the column, that is what you will be learning to do. That is the alphabet as you will be doing it. Now, if you look at the column that says hand, and then compare it to the column that says book form, which is 2 to the left, can you see that obviously they're different because one is made with a print machine and one is made with your hand? I did these that are in here where it says hand. That's my terrible handwriting there, okay? But if you can see the resemblance of the hand print to the book print, then you're 80% already ready to learn how to read. There are people that say, yeah, maybe a little bit, but no, this one is curvy, this one is this, that. If you don't see thank you. If you don't see the resemblance, then we need to spend a little time together. Okay? And then you see block, next to where it says hand to the right column says block. Those are more like the ones you're going to do by hand. It's just a different font. I found this font that resembles what we're going to do by hand. And at the very last one where it says script at the top, that is scripting. We don't have capitals and lowercase. We don't have that. Instead, what we have is scripting. And here is why. I'll demonstrate. And I'll use red. Here is how you do, can you all see this, or do I need to make this higher? Can you see this? Okay, here's an aleph that we do by hand. So we go down from top to right to the bottom, then down this way. We don't go in the middle, otherwise it will be an X. This is a mistake many newcomers to Hebrew. So when you make the aleph, this part is simple, but then you go not to the middle, but below the center. Let's say this is the center. And then the other one is above that. So that's your aleph. It's not an X. Okay? But then the scripting is an aleph as well, and it looks like this. That's not. These two are the same letters. This is print, and this is script. Now, why did they come up with this? By the way, the vowels, the jots and tittles in Hebrew didn't come in until about the 3rd century. Up until then, there were no numbers. In the Torah, for example, in the Torah scroll, there are no numbers, there are no markings, there are no jots and tittles. All there is there are the letters. So when you're looking something up in the Torah, you got to roll and roll and roll, because there's no way to find it unless you really know the entire Torah by heart. So it's a job sometimes to find the scripture that you are trying to find. So that's it. Now, why did they come up with this? A professor at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem told me this when I went to a quick 3-day summation there. If you were to write a letter and have to write them this way, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, it'll take you a year to write a letter if you have to do it this way. Whereas doing it, the scripting is real fast. You see how fast you could do it? So they came up with scripting. In Israel, books, newspapers, telephone book, advertising, all of that is this way. But when people write notes to each other, it's this way. Now, back to as far as fonts. There are as many fonts in Hebrew, and they all look different with some similarity. And you will see that because purposely in the book, different pages have same letters but different fonts. I wanted you to get used to seeing different fonts, and that's specifically for those who want to continue with their Hebrew and go on with the Hebrew. So you will see, sometimes you'll run across material that looks a little strange, but if you look a little harder at it, you see that, oh, it's the same thing. It's just different fonts. You know, we don't have Davida Bold and, what are all the other names that these fonts have. I don't know all the names in Hebrew, okay? So much for page 6 and the differential in the letters. Question?
I noticed that Aleph says the meaning is strong power leader.
Where are you?
Oh, I was on page 6, the Hebrew alphabet language graph. I've got
You mean 5?
well, yeah, mine it says page 6, I think, but I'm not.
Your book says 6, not 5?
Mine says 6.
You have an old book.
Oh, I got an old one. Okay.
You need a new book.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I was just wondering, because I'm just thinking about Alpha and the Omega, and the beginning and the end kind of thing. And I was noticing that Tav is the last letter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it resolves to a cross. And I thought it was interesting that Aleph, the beginning, is strong, powerful leader, but it resolves, the end of it is the cross, which is sort of like a humble, broken servant kind of thing. So I thought that was an interesting...
Very interesting. You touched on something that later on I talk about, but I might as well go now. Trust me, Jesus did not say, I'm the Alpha and Omega. I promise you, he did not say that. First of all, he spoke in Aramaic at that time, and he did say, I'm the Aleph and the Taf. Okay, so again, it's a translation thing. There are several things that Jesus did not say the way that we think or that we've learned thus far. But why would he have said, I'm the Alpha and Omega? The population at that time spoke either Hebrew or the Romans, but he wasn't speaking to the Romans. He was speaking to Israel. Now, we are not sure whether he spoke Hebrew or Aramaic, because I don't know if you knew this or not. Maybe it's a surprise to you, but Aramaic is Hebrew. This is a very low form of Hebrew. And the majority of the population who was not schooled, because in villages, they maybe had one Torah, and that's the only thing they had printed. And it's called a cheder. In Hebrew, a cheder is room. It was called the room. It was a rabbi who sat at a table with his Torah scroll, and he had students all around him. And that's how they studied. There was one scroll and a bunch of people around the rabbi's table, and that's how he would read, and he would say, this is an aleph, everybody say aleph. This is a bet, everybody say bet. That's how they taught, that's how they taught in those days. And that's how they learned in those days. So, yes, that's, maybe I should have the right book. Okay, I'll use the same book as you all. This is a 9th edition, so I'm hoping that I have the same book. I should have thrown out all my old books, but in any case. Any questions so far? All right, if there aren't any, at any time, please feel free to say, can we go back to, and I'll flip back a page and answer your question. I believe in answering questions now, not later, okay? No questions on page 6, then we'll go on to page 7. Page 7, as you notice, has English letters, okay? Now, what I've discovered in teaching adults versus teaching children is that adults don't need to relearn some obvious things. Adults know that. It's just automatic in the adult brain. Oh yeah, that's how that is, and we know why. Children have to go, well, why? Why? Because children's brains are different. This is what I've discovered doing this book. My attempt in this page is to show the jots and tittles, which are called nikud. Okay, nikud is a word for dot. A dot is called nekuda. The entire arena of the jots and tittles is called nikud. But 2 or more of nikud are nikudim. One is nikud, 2 or more are nikudim, but the arena of the vowel is called nikud as well. So this is all part of nikud. You don't really need to know that other than recognizing what they are. If you look at the very bottom of page 7, you see that the jots and tittles, that you see them in picture form, they have names. The interesting thing is, I do not require that you know the names of the nikud, but you have to know what sound the nikud makes. So fortunately, if you learn the names of the jots and tittles, then automatically you'll know what sound they make. Here's an example. A little line beneath a letter, let's use the letter M like they do here. So here's the M. And if you put, I'm going to veer away from what it says in the book to make my point. Then we'll go back to how it is in the book. The ah sound, as you see in the bottom section of where the vowels are, names of vowels, nikud, is called patach. This little line like this is called a patach. Do you all see that? Little line is called a patach. What sound does a patach make? Ah, patach. Okay. If you look down there below patach, in the next box it says kubutz. Okay. You see the 3 dots on an angle? What sound does a kubutz make? Ooh. Duh. All right, you're already 50% into learning Hebrew.
All right.
Okay, so here, what would this sound now here is? What is that? Okay, so, but it's an M, so what sound is that?
Ma.
It's a ma. All right, what would this sound be?
Moo.
Moo. Okay, etc., etc. See how it's easier to teach adults? Kids, I'd have to go through each one of these 15 times. With you, I did 2 examples. I don't have to do any more. I know you can figure it all out.
We'll go with this.
Okay, but I do anyway. But I'm saying I know that you'll get it quick. Kids say, "Oh, why? How come? Can I put this over here?" No. Okay. So I'm using the English letters now. Under the A, we all know in English the vowels are A, E, I, O, U. So I took the English vowels of A, E, I, O, U, and I made them into Hebrew sounds of E, I, O, U. Okay? So the A, E, I, O, U of English are the E, I, I, O, U. In this case, the whole generation of the vowels will be me, mi, ma, mo, mu. Just like E, I, I, O, U. The bet would be be, bi, ba, bo, bu. Okay? Here is a Hebrew bet. Without a dot, the Hebrew bet, it's still the letter bet. The name of it is still a bet, but without a dot, it's pronounced differently. It's vet. It's soft. So a bet without a dot is still a bet by name of what the letter's name is. But the pronunciation of a bet without a dot is vet. So Abba would be A, Ba, and a silent aleph at the end. It has no dots or jittles or anything below it, so we don't pronounce it. It's like the H in Sarah. But if you do put something underneath there, so this actually is this way, Ba, here it's blank, so that's silent. However, if you put something here, then you'd have to pronounce that letter. So let's put one of these underneath here as well, just for simplicity. So now we have A, Ba, A. There's no such word as Abba, A, but that's how you read. And the purpose of this class is to read. Now I will misspell many words in this 8-week course, only for the purpose of you hearing what the jots and tittles do to the letters. Okay? Now there's no such word as Abba, A, but because that A sound is below the aleph, I have to sound that aleph. When you have no sound beneath the aleph, when it's at the end of a word, then it's silent. So we have the word Abba. Okay? Now, we talked a minute ago, I jumped every once in a while, and that's why I say it's easier to teach adults. I jump around a little bit. So I'm going to jump around because of something I said a minute ago. When we read the page that showed the different letters, we saw 5 letters that looked different when they're placed at the end of a word. So let me take the word Ima. Here is Ima. And looking at this page with the page 7 below, who can tell me how do I make this aleph, out of all the possibilities of E, I, O, U, which one, what jot or tittle do I put here to make it E?
The 2 dots?
1 dot is correct. So here's a E. So now I have E. I'm working on Ima, right? Okay, now I go to the next letter, which is a Mem. What do I do under the Mem? The word I'm looking for is Ima. Patach would be good. So that's E. And then we have another aleph here, but it is silent. So what do? I do nothing. Now it says Ima. Now, can somebody read this for me? What is that? It's also Ima. It's like a Sarah without the H on the end. Okay, now it's misspelled, but if I don't see what you're writing, but you're telling me, then that still is Ima for mom. Okay, so Ima does have a silent aleph on the end. Why is it silent? Because there's no jar or tittle, no nikud, as we've learned. However, because there's another word for Ima, which is aim. Ima would be mother, aim would be mom. There is a difference, even though they mean the same. And mom in Hebrew is aim. We have mother, Ima. We have mom, which is em. Em is written this way. I have an aleph. What needs to be underneath here if the word is em? 3 dots would work.
Or 2?
Correctly speaking, I didn't want to confuse, so I went with your 3 dots, because that would be M. But correctly speaking, it is the 2 dots, like snake eyes. The difference is that the 3 dots is A like apple, and the 2 dots, it's A like bay, fay, may, ray. It's got a curvy sound to it. So the word aim does have a mem that looks different than this M. Oh, sorry, where's the Hebrew M? Here. Okay? This is the same letter as this, other than it looks different because it's at the end of the word. You follow me so far? Question.
I thought the 2 dot, the horizontal 2 dots is like an A sound.
It's like A, fay, bay, like bay.
Oh, okay.
Not A like apple.
Okay.
Unless you're from Mississippi. Then it's A, even though it's the 3 dots. Because Mississippi, that's how they talk. It was a joke. So here we have the mem, which is called final mem. It's called final because it's in the final position of the word. Okay? You with me? Now, there are only 5 final form letters. Thank you, God. Question?
Well, it was back a little bit when we were doing the Abba, and then with the B, the vet in the middle, are you intending to have the line underneath it?
Over here?
Underneath
Here?
that, yes, sir.
It's a little T.
Yes,
It's another form of ah sound.
okay.
All the sounds are always, there's always 2, that's how Jews are. They want to give you, more than one way. So if you look, other than the A, which is three possibilities, page 7, you see under the A, where it says A as in at, you have 3, the middle column, you see 3 possibilities. Those are the 3 eh sounds. You have eh like apple, you have eh like maple. It's not maple, the word is maple. Or bait, right? Bait is not bat. Bat is home run, but the 2 dots makes it not bat, 2 dots makes it bait. The 2 dots going this way, up and down, those are like really, really short. Might as well not even have dots and jittle there. Might as well not even have any there. In fact, at some teachings, when you see the 2 dots, I call them shotgun dots, one over the other, over under. Those of you who know guns, over under. When you see an over under jot in the Hebrew, just pretend like there's nothing there. But you have to make the sound of the letter. So when you read, one of the important things to remember in reading Hebrew is there are two responsibilities every time your mouth gets ready to make a sound with the letter and some jots and tittles under it. First, you have to identify what is that letter. Is it an N? Is it an M? Is it O? Is it G? Is it Z? Okay, so first we have to recognize what letter it is. And the next responsibility is, what is the sound? Not of the letter, but of the sound that the letter that we're trying to make that letter to make. So in this case, we recognize this middle one here. We recognize it's an aleph, so it's not a b, it's a. And then the bottom tells us what's the sound. That's an a, so that's a a. Here it's a ba. So my two responsibilities. Firstly, I'm recognizing that this is a bet. B, 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 and what? A. So we have a b, b, b with the a sound, makes it ba. I mean, that's how I'm finiting it as much as possible. Questions so far? Anybody confused on this? Then we'll go on.
Curious. When you're teaching, do you always start with mother and father as like key words that you begin your class with?
I would say probably 99% of the time I do. Because
Is there any reflection in the Trinity? Like, I know that they talk about the Word of God as one, God. Is there any word that refers to God as mother and father?
not mother,
Not
but father all the time, in everything. Abba.
And it's just Abba.
Abba. Or Av for dad. Same as Ima for mother and Aim for mom. Same with Abba for father and Av for dad. Now the Av is a bet without a dot. So Av is like this. Running out of room. Here's Av. Aleph. Bet without a dot. There's Av. And to make it Abba, what do? First of all, we change the sound of the letter. So now it's not Av, but Abba. Actually, this is a Patach and Kamatz. And then we add the other silent Aleph. Now we have Abba. See it?
And Dr. Michael, I have one more question.
Sure.
When Jesus said that not one jot or tittle would pass away from his word, do you have a comment about that?
I do. His point was that there's so much no change that not even one dot has changed. And I can tell you that sometimes, not often, but there occasionally is a time when one little dot will change the meaning of a whole sentence. Just by a dot being placed in a different place than you originally placed it. Or any of the nikuds. And you will make errors. Okay? But you'll learn that eventually you won't make errors. So let me go back to page 7 under where it says A. There are 3 possibilities. You see one of them is add the 3 dots. A as in mat. I'm using the M's. So A as in map, or A as in apple, or A as in at. Okay? It's not 8. The 2 dots would be 8. And then a real short sound would be when you have the 2 dots over and under. For example, here's an example. Egg. It's not an egg. It's not an ag. It's an egg. See how short it is? Or the word, I met you. It's not mat. Mat is something you wipe your feet on. It's not mate, but rather It's met. So it's really short. So when you have two responsibilities when you're reading a word, and one of the letters doesn't have anything for your second responsibility, then you just forego it. It's like not there, like the H in Sarah. Doesn't happen often, so don't let it. Don't get bogged down with it.
Ask a question. Am I mistaken? But when I was in Israel reading signs and stuff, a lot of times they don't use Nikud.
No, there is no Nikud. Nikud is a teaching method.
Oh, it's just a teaching method. Oh.
Nikud came in the 3rd century when when the land has all of a sudden beget more scrolls. Because remember, a scroll takes 4 to 7 years to complete. And one of the problems, because the rabbinicals are involved in the manufacturing of scrolls. I say manufacturing, but it's one person sitting all day long, drawing. Well, when a scribe, to be a scribe, first of all, is not simple. To be a scribe, you have to have already been a rabbi. There are no scribes who aren't already rabbis. You must be a rabbi even to consider becoming a scribe. And you have to be recommended to the scribe association of wherever area you live in, Poland or Israel or wherever. You have to be recommended by 3 other rabbis that this rabbi we recommend would be a good scribe. So it's not easy to be a scribe, but here's why. There has to be a lot of trustworthiness that you don't eat when you don't dribble food on the Torah. You don't touch the parchment because your hand have oil on them. Other little nuances and little I call them dummy rules, but they make sense. Another one that's very important is when a scribe makes an error. You could be on the last scripture of the Torah. You make an error, there's no whiteout allowed. They throw away that whole section and you start all over. So it takes a long time to do a scribe. So by the time the 3rd century came around, there were more scrolls available and there were more students, and they had to find a way to be on the same page, so to speak, to sound out the same way that the rabbi sounds it out. You can't have them pronounced differently. And when there's no Nikud, I can read with no Nikud. In Israel, in the 3rd grade, there are dots and jittles in the books, in the school books. The latter part of the 3rd grade, they begin to teach you the words without the Nikud. Because by then, by age 3, or 3rd grade, I should say, you're like, what in America, what age are you in 3rd grade? 8, 9, 7, 8, 9? Well, by the time you're 7, 8, 9, you already know the language. There's no more need for Nikud. You know that the Aleph, Bet, and Aleph is Abba. There's no Ebi, there's no Ibu. Aleph, Bet, Aleph is Abba. There's no other word like that. Now, for teaching purposes, I switch them around and I say Abi, Uba, to let you see what the Nikud does. But there's no word like Abba other than Abba. There's no other word like it. So what do I need Nikud for? Once you know the letters. But you don't know the letters. So the rabbis got smart. They go, we need to invent a way that they can pronounce the way we pronounce. And they invented Nikud. So past the 3rd grade, there's no Nikud in Israel.
I just want to comment that this heart for teaching, like the rabbis are displaying, they want to make sure it's passed down and distilled to the next generation carefully. That is such a Hebraic God mindset. And when our teachers come from Israel to teach us the Hebraic dances, just like they're doing in Israel.
They take it seriously.
They do, because we're thinking that 4th dimensional picture of someday in heaven, the Lord's going to sound a trumpet and he's going to, there's going to say, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe." And we're all gonna break into the same dance. So after the class today, if anybody wants to learn that dance, I would love to show it to you.
There's another reason for that. Jews believe in continuity. Continuity and steadfastness make things to become true, or be true, and stay true. And they also believe in never forgetting. You just never forget. You don't allow yourself to forget. If you forget, it'll happen again. That's why we celebrate the Holocaust, even though it's an awful, terrible, disgusting, the worst thing ever, ever, ever. But what? Yom HaShoah? Jews will never not have a Yom HaShoah every year to remember the Holocaust. Because or Purim or any of them. That's exactly correct. All right, so back to page 7. On the 3 categories, we have as in apple, A as in May, and E as in met. The next item is the E. The E uses one of the Hebrew letters, the Yud. A Yud, when placed in a word without nikud in it, under it, over it, or next to it, then the Yud is not pronounceable, except for the E sound. And the Yud is the smallest but most powerful letter in the Hebrew language. Because the Yud is from Yeh, which is God. So the Yud, even though it's the smallest letter, is the most important letter in the Hebrew alphabet. But a Yud also makes the E sound. So an E sound, for example, I'll do it right here where there's already a vet. Okay, if I want to make this to be the word V, because there's no dot, remember? So it's, even though it's a letter bet, the pronunciation without a dot is V, like a V. So this is a V. But if I want to make it be V, there's 2 ways. One is put a dot under it. We've already learned a couple of minutes ago, right? So now this right here is pronounced V. Or, without a dot, if there's a little Yud here, that is also pronounced V, because the Yud has no other nikud anywhere around it, so it becomes the E sound. So in this case right here, this letter ceases to be a letter, and it has become a vowel, and it's the E sound. So this here says V. However, there's like an unspoken rule, and what you'll find is that every time you see a Yud next to a letter for the purpose of making it sound V, there is also a chirik under it. So rarely will you see E sound with a Yud without it in both places. So when you see this combination with any Hebrew letter, and I mean any, when you have the combination of the dot and the Yud, it's the E sound. So let's take a Gimel, the 3rd letter. A Gimel is a letter just like that. And if I want to make this sound Gi, then I do a Yud and a dot. That is Gi. You can use just the dot or just the Yud, but you'll notice you don't see it often. Usually they're always both together. Okay? So, to make a Gi sound, it could be any letter. And what I'm teaching you here today about the nikud, it is for every letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So, E, I, O, U. Be, Bi, Ba, Bo, Bu. Ge, Gi, Ga, Go, Gu. De, Di, Da, Do, Du. He, He, Ha, Ho, Hu. Le, Li, La, Lo, Lu. Ze, Zi, Za, Zo, Zu. That's what the nikud does, and that's how we know how to pronounce. So if you write the word, I know that some of you are going to recognize this word I'm going to put on here. But I love to use that example because it's a little break for my throat. Okay. Here is a word and there's no nikud. So you look at it and you go, well, how am I supposed to know that? All right, let me put nikud in, and with the aid of what you see here, let's see who gets it. What's that word there? Bingo. Read it. Read it.
What was the second one?
I know it's premature. I know it's hard. I want to make you work.
What was the second? Lamed better? Or Nikud?
That's a lamed.
Yeah, it's elevated.
What was it originally?
It's still a lamed.
Oh.
They don't change letters just because there's nikud there. The word is Elohim. Lo. Here's the aw sound for the lamed. Here the vav ceases to be a letter and becomes a vowel. Here is a hey with the e sound, and here's the yud. Remember we said it's always together? So here's the e with this e, and here's the mem sofit. Why does this not look like this? Because it's at the end of the word. So that's what nikud does. If you learn nikud, you're on your way to reading Hebrew other than learning the alphabet. Now, I'll give you a little hint on the alphabet, and it's in the book. You recall when we were little and we ran home so proud that we learned a huge long word in school today. The word was supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. How proud were we, right? In the third grade? How about when we got to college and we learned anti-disestablishmentarianism? How proud were we? Well, there is a word that I urge you to learn, because by knowing that word, you'll know the entire alphabet. Let me bring your attention to, you're saying now impossible, right? Well, wait till you see this. You're going to love this. Sorry I can't take credit for inventing it, but yeah, I'll take credit. I invented it. No, I didn't. Don't know why. I don't know off the top of my head what page it's on. But if anybody knows what I'm looking for and can find it.
12, alphabet song.
Page 12, alphabet song, page 12. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, correcto mundo. Thank you. Okay. On page 12, the word is as follows. Where it says alphabet song, you see the alphabet there, one long word. You see the jots and tittles below them. Now, if you already knew the jots and tittles, you'd be able to do this without me telling you how. But since we haven't got there yet, I'll do it for you, okay? Here it is. Abba gada hevzacheti kalmanesa patskareshet. Let's look at it together. Feast your eyes. I'll do it slow. Abba gada hevzacheti. You see the dot and the yud next to it? What were we just talking about? See, they always appear together. Okay, Abba gada hevzacheti. Kalmanesa, silent ayin. Then to continue, pats kareshet. Abba gada hevzacheti Abba gada hevzacheti kalmanesa patskareshet. We didn't have, when I was little, we didn't have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. It just didn't go well with the Hebrew. It doesn't fit right. So someone invented this, and when I saw it, I got, bingo, that's what I need. By the way, just below it, we talked about that the other day, the menorah, the picture of a menorah with the two olive branches on page 12 at the very bottom. There's a little history about that. That is the seal and insignia of the government of Israel.
Zechariah 4 has that picture
Exactly.
of the two
Exactly. And by the way, God gives instructions in the Bible how to make this menorah. He spells it out, how to make it. So it's very biblical.
Would you pronounce that word one more time here?
Abagada.
Wait. No.
Abagada. Hevza. Cheti. Kalmanesa. Patskaresheta.
Thank you.
Now, that sound that I make, okay, that is a sound of a letter that appears in very, very few languages. I know that because my mom, who spoke about 15 languages, she worked with Maria Montessori teaching children. She was a PhD in child psychology. That's why she became friends with Maria Montessori. They talked about that. I remember being very little and I was in the other room, but I remember them talking, Maria Montessori and my mom. They worked on collaborated on a language book. And that sound, like tsitsi fly, you know, like nuts to you, that sound, it appears in the click language. You all know what a click language is? It's one of the African languages where it doesn't have words. They speak like this. That's I love you in whatever language. You know, I don't. It's really not. I don't know, but that's what it sounds like. There's a wonderful movie that you could get, and I recommend that movie anyway. No killing, no stabbing, no dirty words. A wonderful family movie, and it's called "The Gods Must Be Angry." Get that movie. You'll hear the click language. Now that language also has that sound. Hebrew has that tzadi. The letter tzadi in Hebrew, the word tzaddik means righteous. Righteous man is a tzaddik. To be righteous is tzaddik. And the name of the letter is tzaddik. Yeah.
I noticed that you drew attention to the yud, Monica.
Yeah.
And I've heard yud hey vav hey or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep. There's a page in here.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yud is.
Is that the same as yaya that you just said?
Well, Yaya would be spelled Yud Aleph, would be Yaya.
Okay.
But no, it's not. What I meant was Ye-Ya. Ye-Ya is the true pronunciation of the false pronunciation of Yahweh. There is no W in Hebrew. So it couldn't be Yahweh. It's no way. Because there is no such thing as Yahweh. I get very adamant because I'll tell you something. The word Yehovah is so sacred to Jews that they don't pronounce it. When Jews' eyes fall on the word Yehovah in the Bible, they don't pronounce that word. They'll say something else instead. They'll say the name, they'll say my Lord, they'll say God. They won't say Yehovah. I know the story about Yahweh. If you want to hear it, I'll tell it to you right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yahweh is a word that came into being about 40 some odd years ago. There was a church in Texas, black church. I think they were Baptists. And it was a well-known church. Anybody in America who was black, who happened to be in Texas, would go to that church to make an appearance. It was one of those kind of churches. Anybody who went to Texas, who felt like going to church, would go to this church. It was a very prolific pastor there who's written books and was loved by everyone. It was a great revival church, and they were Baptists. And he was a well-known pastor. I don't remember his name right now, but they begun to be interested in the Hebrew roots, especially since, and I know that the pastor shared this with me one time, when I was there on a conference of some kind. And he said to me, yeah, the Lord put it on my heart to learn more about Hebrew because we understand that our Hebrew roots. And stupidly, when he talked about John the Baptist, I said, so what would they be? It would be be, etc. You get the point? No pun intended, point? All right, another good page to practice. So if you see on the left, it gives you a guide. And in the text, you see the letters. Then you have be, de, he, ve, ge. Then you have be, de, he, ve, ge. Then you have b, d, he, v, gi. Again, with the yud, same, b, e, d. Then you have the ba, da, ha, va, ga. Right? Let's jump to the last one. Bu, du, hu, vu, and gu. So imagine this last line, all those B, D, H, and the V and the G, change them to Hebrew letters, they'll be the same thing. They'll all be the U sound. U, bu, gu, du, ru, zu, lu, mu, du. Very simple. Okay? Any questions on this page? If there are no questions on this page, let's go on task. And this, no, but this class is not how to spell, it's how to read. So if you see a little line or a little T, your mouth knows it's ah. After you've done this a while and begin to read either Bible or a book or a magazine, then you'll start seeing when it's a kamatz and when it's a patach. Usually when it's in the beginning of a word, in the very beginning, it'll be this. And the line usually will be in the middle of a word or towards the end. But not always, so it's not a rule. I'm saying you'll notice that. But it's a good question. All right. So we are jumping to page 9, vowel memory drill. This is where you can teach yourself on how to use the nikud as that you just learned today. This will solidify it. There are 3 exercises on this page. Okay? On the right side, you have 2 boxes. The top section and the bottom section. They're 2 different lessons. And on the left side, the one that's all the way down the page, it's a different lesson. This is a homework page. But let's do it together. So your first homework, I'm helping you. Okay? And you'll pay. All right. Page 9. On the right side. Do you see a little line beneath a little letter for the first one? The first one is the father. So you see the A has a line under it. They want you to pronounce that sound. So it's father. You use a kamatz or a patach. In this point of your learning experience, it doesn't matter which one you use. Knowing that a patach and a kamatz are both a, for now, that's what I want you to learn. Later you'll learn when do you use a patach and when you use a kamatz. But they're both the same as far as sound is concerned. They're both the a sound. Okay? So you understand this homework now. Any questions on this page? It doesn't mean you can't ask me next week when you failed your homework. You can ask me, and I hope you do, but you'll notice that a lot of it is common sense. Okay? No questions, we're going to go on, all right?
Good.
What I want you to do in there is, let's see, what does it say again? In this exercise, the sun is underlined. Okay, we know that. So write the correct vowel. Oh, in actual words, put kamatz or patach.
Oh, okay, right.
Right. Unless I didn't make that plain. Is that not, maybe I need to change something?
The symbol of the word.
Use the word. Because you're learning, you want to know the words of the vowels. So the more you learn, the better it is. So yeah, the answer is use the word of what is that name of that vowel. You can cheat and go back to the page and look at the names of them. On page 7, the names of them are at the bottom, names of vowels. Okay? Good question. Any others? So you know kind of what to do here? Anyone not clear what I want on this page? Awesome. Let's go to section 2. Review of section 1. Now notice on the big box, I changed from English letters to Hebrew letters. I'm using the letter bet. So here's the A-E-I-O-U's with Hebrew letters like bet. So if you look at the bet, the first, the box, the third box on the right, when you have the 3 Hebrew bets, the very left one, you see the 3 dots below that bet? That's bet, like bapple, right? Apple, bapple, 3 dots, Next one is bay or bait, like you put on a fishing hook, a bait. It's not a bat. You don't put bat on a hook to catch fish. You put bait on the hook. And the last one is bet. Real short, bet. Even if you remove that shavah, your mouth still has to say that sound of the bet. That's a letter bet. But it's so fast that you might as well not have the nikud there. But politically correct needs to be there, a nikud, so they put the shavah. Okay? So it's like... I'm trying to think of an example to use with that short Shavah. Oh, I know a very good one. The prayer, the Shema, it is not Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. It is not Shema. The word is Shema. Not Shema, not Shema. It's Shema. Here are short. Now, let me write that word Shema so we can actually look at it. I think this is a good lesson. Let me do this right here. All righty. Here's the word Shema. Oops. Okay, see that? Shema. Now, if I took this nikud out of here, well, before I do that, what did we learn about how many responsibilities when you read a word? We have 2 responsibilities for every letter. So in this letter here, our responsibility is number 1, make that sound. What is that? Shh. Shh. So we got that first responsibility. The second one is, how do we pronounce that shh? Is it she, she, sha, sho, shu? Which one? It's sh, 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 sh. Now, if you remove this, then theoretically we only have 1 responsibility on this right here, right? And that's to make that sound sh. Because this word Shema is so, because that nikud, the Sheva, is so short, it might as well not be there. You still will know what that word is by pronouncing the sh, because the word here is Shema. With the nikud or not, it's still Shema. So why even have it there? If it's Shema, it's not Shema, it's not Shema, it is Shema. So that's why I mentioned before, when you see the nikud, the 2 dots, pretend it's not there and pronounce that letter as if there was no nikud there. Fast. Shema. See what I'm saying? Hear what I'm saying? Well, in Israel, it's kind of that way. In Israel, you'll hear a lot in conversation. Someone will say, they're having dialogue, you and I are having dialogue, and I'm not in agreement with you, or maybe I am, or whatever, but for conversation purpose, I want you to stop talking and hear what I want to say, and I'll go, Shema. It's like, hear Here. And, I mean, that exists in English too, but it's not in the colloquialistic of the language. But in Israel, it is. In Israel, you'll hear between two people talking to each other, you'll hear that word Shema all the time. It means like, let me interrupt you. I want you to hear me. So they say, Shema.